Action. All right, so everything on the front is all bolted up and together. Now we're gonna move on to the flip kit on the back. This is, like I said, a 3.5 kit, so I should have about 6 inches of drop with just the flip, but they provide a 1-inch lift shackle to get the rear end back up to level it out. So with that, we'll be removing and replacing the shocks. The kit does come with new shocks. And then we're gonna have to undo a lot of the brake lines and stuff, undo the U-bolts. We'll have the transmission jack there underneath the pumpkin, so we can lower this rear end, and we'll shift the whole thing to one side the best that we can and undo the rear of the leaf spring, drop the leaf spring down past the axle and shift it back the other way to get the other leaf spring below. Because right here is your biggest problem. The fuel tank blocks this bolt, so you can't take this bolt all the way out without dropping the tank. And then on this side you got the muffler blocking it, which isn't a big deal, but so rather than dealing with the fuel tank, we'll do it this way. Hopefully save us a little bit of time. I'm going to take off the shocks first, just get them out of the way. I gotta put it on right. I am going to once I get the shocks off, I'll probably go ahead and put the jack under the pumpkin, secure that before I start taking a bunch of brake lines and stuff loose. You shouldn't have to actually crack any lines. You should just be able to take the lines loose from that one side so we can get some play in the diff and move it around. So let's get to it. Shock one.
It's shocking how quick that come out.
Ha ha. All right, as far as these brake lines and e-brake cable and stuff, I'm kind of winging it, but I'm gonna go ahead and take a couple of these loose, what I think will be in our way. Go ahead and grab this J. The U-bolts I'm going to take off next. You want to loosen them up in stages. You don't want to just take one off. So we're going to loosen them up kind of in a pattern slowly, so we don't just have like a bunch of torque on one side or the other.
Give them an update.
All right, so after some looking and trying to figure this out, this e-brake cable looked like it was going to be in the way to get the leaf spring to swing down past the axle. So I went ahead and disconnected the e-brake cable from the truck. We're working on getting the exhaust out of the way so we can have clearance right here with the leaf spring coming down. The instructions don't say this stuff, so I'm kind of winging it, but it definitely looks like it's going to be in the way. Once you get everything off here, these blocks, 4-wheel drive, you don't need them. These, you just throw away.
Ejecto-cedo, cuz.
Ejecto-cedo. And then, yeah, so we're just going to keep working on getting this stuff apart, unbolting the leaf spring. We got a socket that'll go in here so we don't have to worry about taking the spare tire out. So,
Awesome.
and then, yeah, we'll try swinging this leaf spring out. Okay, now we go. Then we're going to get it the rest of the way out. Twist. Can you twist? Let's go. It's almost there. All right. I'll lower your side. went ahead and undid. We got the exhaust out of the way. I took, well, lift blocks are off. The leaf spring bolts are loose. So now we're gonna have to shift this rear end over and out of the way of this leaf spring, and then we'll have, so it's gonna take a couple people. Even with a lift, it's a job.
Difficult.
So, all right, let's go ahead and try to scoot this over. That's all we gotta do is break this loose to get it. All right, once you get this flipped, you're gonna have to take this plate off and you want to flip these two bolts. The bottom side is just a pin, so you're gonna need vice grips or a really bitey pair of pliers to hold on to this while you loosen. You should have a couple clamps. I've only got one with me. Womp. So hopefully I can take one loose, take one out, rotate this plate out of my way, flip the bolt, and yeah, proceed from there. So we'll see how it goes.
You put it on there?
I mean,
Jesus.
okay. These were a nightmare. If you can source leaf spring pins or different bolts and you don't have a lift to do this on, I'd probably just cut these off and replace them because they were that much of a pain in the butt. If you want to try it, it's all on you, but it's my advice. So now to finishing up installing the flip kit. We'll probably have to go ahead and install or loosely install the lift shackle. Put the bracket, lower bracket on, yeah, all that jazz. Because we reuse the stock U-bolts, so the kit does not come with new U-bolts. We'll clean up the threads on those and get this on its way back together. Installing the lift shackles. I went ahead and added grease here, both sides, and then here, cut down, and then cut down noise. And then as far as the bracket itself, it's going to be mounted like this. So whenever this will bolt up in there. So. And as far as this nut, we won't tighten it all the way down because we'll want to trying to get it up in there maneuvered. Like last time, we kind of flipped this up, fought the leaf spring, and then flipped it back over, and we'll tighten it down once it's up there. Okay, so we did this, hits the frame, so we need to, this needs to be the other way. So Just got to go like this in order to fit.
Did you flip the bolt yet?
Yes, I did. Oh, that thing's heavy.
I'll probably go up. Lift this up a little bit more.
Hurt, Steve? Hey, man,
Hammers
when I was
by
a
your foot.
kid, my dad would go, hurt, it hurt. I'd be like,
It always hurts.
All right, so once we get your leaf springs back loosely mounted, we didn't tighten them down all the way yet. You want to get your flip brackets. So these things have a taller side and a shorter side. Taller side will go towards the rear of the truck, so towards the back, and then they actually go up under. And they're supposed to fit over those pins. So if you look at the bottom side of them, there's actually 2 holes. This is where the pins sit. So that'll help position your axle where it needs to be. On the instructions, there's a 10mm bolt that holds the brake line. You'll want to take that out. Okay, for the brackets, the lower bracket matters. The driver's side has a cutout for the shock bolt, and then the mount holes here for the spring will actually go closer to the front. If you look at the plate, they're kind of offset, so they're closer to the front. So shock bolt should be near the back, and then these holes should be closer to the front. And then on the 4-wheel drive, we are going to reuse the factory U-bolts. So we just took the U-bolts over to the wire wheel, cleaned up the threads, and then line everything up. Okay, once you get your flip kit installed, you want to tighten each one kind of in a pattern like y'all seen, and then your brake line bolt should be able to go back in. So what I'm doing now is bolting all of my brake lines and stuff back up. So this bracket that I took loose, and then the e-brake cable, which fighting that e-brake cable back on was a pain in the ass, pain in the A. I ended up having to undo it up there towards the front of the truck to give me enough slack to get it back on. So yeah. All right, now we're going to move on to installing the shocks. They mount this side down. You will reuse the hardware though. These are drop shocks to replace the factory shock. Aladon. So
literally drop shocks. looks killer, dude. All right, Steven, now that it's lowered, you gonna do the tape measure again?
Yeah, we're gonna measure this again. Now, the rear end ended up being a lot worse than the front end, and I expected the front to be bad. So the kit said it was a 3.5 kit. I think we got quite a bit there in the rear. So let's see what we got here.
So before was 22 inch?
Yeah, before was about 22 inches. Well, that's saying about 19 and a half. And the first time I measured this off camera, it was about 22 and a half. So I could have just been holding the tape measure funny. So that is about 3 inches there.
All right, so we got about 3 in the front.
The rear, what was like 25?
Yeah, 25 in the rear.
So we should be right around. So, yeah, that's right at 19. So
About
that's
6
6 inches in the rear. So that's pretty spot on.
So rate how hard this job was.
Front end you can do in your yard, back end, especially having to flip the axle and all that. You need a lift, in my opinion. That's pretty freaking hard. I'd say a 10. The little pins and the leaf springs ended up being a pain in the butt. We still need to do an alignment, which most people aren't going to be able to do that themselves. So you would, at this point, I would be able to drive it to an alignment shop and get it aligned. You wouldn't want to drive it too far this way until you do get an alignment. One thing we didn't film was my carrier bearing bracket. IHC failed to send me one. They were unaware that my truck had a 2-piece drive shaft. They told me to put it on, see if I have any vibrations, and then get a hold of them for a bracket. However, I have done some research, and if you want to cut the stock mount out and then just mount your bracket straight to the cross member up there, once you're under there, you would understand what I'm talking about. I think if I had vibrations, I'm going to go that route rather than buying the actual carrier bearing bracket. Well, we might actually do a separate video on that. It just kind of depends how bad my vibration is and if I'm able to drive it for a week or so before we get to that. But I think it turned out sweet. I don't know about y'all.
Looks killer, dude.
Killer, dude.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you like it. We finally lowered the F-150. We're pumped. That's something Steven wanted to do from day one. Shout out to Michael, Corey, Steven. Go follow us on Instagram, guys. Like I said, make sure you're subscribed. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers. It'd mean the world if we could get there. All right, guys. Again, the kit will be linked in the description box as well. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.
Do you remember which way this went? I think it was that way, right? Yeah. Motherfucker.
PG-13, Steven.
Well, we got bloopers. We can edit out. Up. Fail. Take 2.
Charity thinks I'm lying about where I went this morning, so I took a picture. I'm with Jake from State Farm. What are you wearing, Jake from State Farm?